Ancient Sumeria, one of the earliest known civilizations in Mesopotamia, had a complex legal system with various punishments for different offenses. While precise details about the Sumerian legal system and its punishments are limited, some references provide insights into some of the brutal penalties that were recorded in their law codes. Here are a few examples. Cutting off the hands. In ancient Sumeria, a civilization that existed in Mesopotamia, cutting off the hands was indeed a punishment employed for certain crimes, particularly theft or robbery. This brutal punishment involved amputating the hands of the offender, resulting in permanent disability and serving as a visible symbol of their crime. When individuals were found guilty of theft or robbery, cutting off their hands was seen as a severe form of retribution and deterrence. The act of amputation not only inflicted physical pain, but also left the offender permanently disabled, making it challenging for them to engage in future criminal activities or provide for themselves. The amputation of hands served as a public spectacle, allowing the community to witness the consequences of such offenses. By marking the offender with a visible sign of their crime, it sent a clear message about the consequences awaiting those who engage in theft or robbery. It's important to recognize that the practice of cutting off hands was rooted in the culture and legal context of ancient Sumeria. In their legal system, harsh penalties were often employed to maintain social order and discourage criminal behavior. However, it's crucial to approach such punishments with an understanding of the vast differences between ancient and contemporary standards of justice and human rights. While cutting off the hands may seem excessively brutal by modern standards, it must be understood within the historical context of ancient Sumeria and the belief systems that shaped their legal practices. Eye gouging. In ancient Sumeria, a civilization that thrived in Mesopotamia, eye gouging was indeed a punishment used for severe cases of assault or causing serious bodily harm. This brutal penalty involved forcefully removing one or both of the offender's eyes, resulting in permanent blindness and serving as a public spectacle of their punishment. When individuals were found guilty of inflicting severe harm upon others, particularly in cases of assault or grievous bodily injury, eye gouging was considered a harsh form of retribution. The act of forcefully extracting the eyes caused excruciating pain and left the offender permanently blind, serving as a visible and lasting reminder of their crime. The purpose behind eye gouging as a punishment was twofold. First, it aimed to inflict severe physical suffering upon the offender, serving as a form of retribution for their actions. Secondly, the public nature of the punishment sought to deter others from committing similar acts of violence, reinforcing the consequences that awaited those who transgressed societal norms. It's important to understand that the practice of eye gouging was rooted in the culture and legal context of ancient Sumeria. Their legal system prioritized harsh penalties as a means of maintaining social order and deterring criminal behavior. However, it's essential to approach such punishments with an understanding of the vast differences between ancient and contemporary standards of justice and human rights. By modern standards, the act of eye gouging is considered an extremely brutal and inhumane punishment. The intentional infliction of permanent blindness is viewed as a violation of basic human rights. Nevertheless, when examining historical practices, it's crucial to consider the societal and cultural norms prevalent at the time and the significant divergence between ancient and contemporary principles of justice. Burning at the stake. In ancient societies, including some instances within historical periods such as medieval Europe, burning at the stake was a punishment employed for various offenses, including witchcraft, sorcery, or heresy. This brutal penalty involved tying the offender to a stake and setting them on fire. The primary objective of this form of punishment was to eradicate perceived threats to religious or societal order. When individuals were accused of engaging in activities considered heretical, practicing witchcraft, or performing sorcery, they were subjected to burning at the stake as a means of punishment and public spectacle. The act of setting someone on fire was intended to cause immense physical pain, suffering, and ultimately death through severe burns or suffocation from the smoke. The choice of burning at the stake as a punishment was often influenced by religious beliefs and the desire to eliminate any perceived threats to established religious institutions or societal norms. By publicly executing individuals in such a horrific manner, authorities aimed to instill fear, suppress dissent, and reinforce religious and social conformity. It's crucial to acknowledge that the practice of burning at the stake is widely regarded as a gross violation of human rights and a horrific form of punishment. From a modern perspective, it's considered a barbaric and inhumane practice. However, it's important to understand historical practices within their specific cultural and social context, recognizing the significant evolution of human rights principles over time. Contemporary legal systems and international standards prioritize the protection of human rights and prohibit cruel and unusual punishment. The use of burning at the stake as a punishment is unequivocally condemned by modern standards, reflecting a broader recognition of the inherent dignity and value of every individual. Drowning. In certain historical contexts, including ancient societies, drowning was indeed employed as a method of punishment for specific crimes such as adultery or certain forms of theft. This brutal penalty involved submerging the offender in the water until they drowned, effectively causing death through suffocation and terror. When individuals were found guilty of committing crimes deemed deserving of the punishment of drowning, they'd be subjected to the agonizing fate. The act of drowning would involve submerging the offender in water, denying them the ability to breathe, and leading to their ultimate demise. The use of drowning as a punishment aimed to inflict severe suffering and serve as a deterrent against committing the specified crimes. By employing such a terrifying and painful method of execution, authorities sought to instill fear in the population and discourage others from engaging in similar offenses. It is crucial to recognize that the practice of drowning as a form of punishment is considered extremely inhumane and a violation of basic human rights by contemporary standards. Modern legal systems prioritize the prohibition of cruel and unusual punishment, emphasizing the respect for human dignity and the preservation of life. These historical practices were the stepping stone for the evolution of societal values and human rights principles over time. While drowning may have been employed as a punishment in certain historical periods, it's essential to approach such practices with a critical perspective, recognizing the stark contrast between ancient and modern principles of justice and human rights. Disembowelment. Disembowelment was indeed a punishment used in various historical contexts, including ancient civilizations, as a particularly gruesome form of execution. This brutal penalty involved the removal of the offender's internal organs, often through the abdomen. It was typically reserved for acts of treason, rebellion, or serious offenses against the ruling class. When individuals were found guilty of crimes such as treason, rebellion, or serious offenses against the ruling elite, disembowelment was employed as a means of punishment. It's important to note that the practice of disembowelment is widely regarded as an exceptionally cruel and inhumane form of punishment by modern standards. Contemporary legal systems and human rights principles unequivocally condemn such practices, emphasizing the prohibition of torture and the preservation of human dignity. When examining historical practicing, disembowelment, although employed in the past, is considered a violation of basic human rights and a stark departure from contemporary principles of justice and human dignity. It's important to note that the above punishments were derived from various historical texts and legal codes from the Sumerian civilization. The legal systems and societal values of ancient Sumeria were vastly different from our standards. It was very different from what it is now. Punishments were often designed to serve as a deterrent, maintain social order, and reflect the beliefs and customs of that time. So that concludes our episode today. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and we'll be back with more episodes.